Hey everyone, welcome to the next session, Selenium and its components. In this session, we're going to talk about what is Selenium, why Selenium became famous, what are the different components Selenium have, and then we'll see the architecture of Selenium. So let's start with Selenium automation tool. Selenium automates browser. That's it. What you do with that power is entirely up to you. Whether you want to do the automation testing through it or whether you want to do administrative tasks with it. Primarily, it is used for automation testing, but certainly it's not limited to that. You can do administrative tasks with it. One of the example which a lot of people do is filling up their timesheet every day. That's a repetitive task. You can simply automate that using Selenium. So let's see why Selenium became famous. So Selenium is an open source tool. It is free to use, no license cost is involved, and it's very easy to start with. That's the first reason Selenium became famous. Then Selenium works with all the major programming languages like Java, Python, C Sharp, Ruby, JavaScript. You can write your code from using any of the programming language. Then Selenium is a platform independent language and tool. What does that mean? That you can develop your code on any of the platform, whether it's Linux or it's Mac or it's Windows operating system. You can simply create your code on any of these platforms. Then Selenium supports all major vendor of browser, be it Mozilla Firefox or Google Chrome or Opera or Safari. It supports almost all the major vendor of browser. And last but not the least is it has a large community to support. Over last 10 years, a big community has grown, and whatever challenges or problem you will be facing in your real life, you can simply go and check on all these communities to get an answer. Then what are the different components of Selenium? Selenium has four components. Selenium started with remote control, that is Selenium RC. It's an obsolete product now, but this was the tool which actually made Selenium famous in the market. And it was the first tool which was an open source, which provided multiple programming language support, which provided multiple browser vendor support, and so on. Then came Selenium ID. Selenium ID is it's a plugin. If I talk about 4 to 5 years back, Selenium ID was a plugin with Firefox browser, and you can simply record your code, your automation scripts, and then can rerun them, can edit them, but it had a limited scope only. Okay. Also, Selenium ID was used mainly for prototype testing. Prototype testing as in just to verify as a proof of concept that your automation can be done through Selenium. We used to use Selenium ID. Now, recently, like 6 to 7 months back, Selenium ID is back. But this time it's not a plugin in Firefox, rather it's a plugin in Chrome browser. So you can simply install a Google Chrome extension and can automate your scenarios. But again, it has very limited scope and it still can only be used for prototype testing, but not for your big complex projects. Then the third component we have is Selenium WebDriver, which we are going to do extensively in this course. So Selenium WebDriver also started as Selenium 2, then it became Selenium 3. The current stable version as at the time of the recording of this course is 3.149. Selenium 4 is on the verge of release. We have alpha releases and beta releases for Selenium 4, but the stable version is 3.149. That's why in whole of the course I'm going to work with that. In couple of minutes, I'll also show you the architecture of Selenium WebDriver. And then we have the fourth component, which is Selenium Grid. Selenium Grid is a tool which is used for testing your code parallelly. So using Selenium WebDriver, we are going to write all our code, whatever automation scripts we have to write, we are going to write through Selenium WebDriver. But to test them parallelly on multiple machines, we need Selenium Grid. Using Selenium Grid, you can reduce your time of execution. How? You can just simply set up an environment where multiple machines are connected together and you can simply run your code from one machine to different machines. Let us look at the architecture of Selenium WebDriver, and then we'll look into the architecture of Selenium Grid. So let's start with the Selenium WebDriver. Now, whatever code you will be writing using Selenium client library, which I'll show you how to download and use. So basically using Selenium libraries, whatever code you're going to write, we have to actually automate browsers. But there is no direct communication between this code and your browser. Rather, an intermediate is required, and that intermediate is nothing but the browser drivers. So every browser provides an executable file which we call as browser driver instance. So some of them are Chrome driver, Edge driver, Safari driver. Like for every browser, you will have one executable file. Then Selenium sends the command to these executable files using JSON wire protocol. Whatever method you will be calling, let's say you want to invoke a browser and then navigate to a particular URL, you will be calling driver.get method. So this .get method is written in Java. Request is sent in JSON via protocol in JSON format to your executable file, and then your executable file sends an HTTP request to your browser. The browser driver instance will understand the JSON and then creates an HTTP request out of it and sends it to the browser. Once this is done, then if let's say browser got some command, it can be a get command or a post command, and it will execute that command on the browser. After that, whatever response is there, this browser will sends back in HTTP format, and then your executable file respond back to your Selenium client again on JSON wire protocol. So this is the architecture, high level architecture of Selenium WebDriver, how it works. So let's look into the grid. So as I mentioned, Selenium Grid is one where you'll be creating hub node network. We will create one system as a hub, and then we'll create multiple nodes, and those nodes will connect to this hub. Using this client library, you can execute your code. Basically, you will send your commands to this hub, and then it's responsibility of hub to distribute that execution. So let's say if it receives 5 commands to run it in parallel, it will identify the nodes where it can run. Say for example, first 3 you want to run only on the Chrome browser, so it can send to any of these 3 browsers, 3 nodes. But if let's say it's a command to run it only on Safari, then it will only send it to this. So it's a smart system which will identify where it can run the code, and accordingly it will run. Okay, you only have to send the request to hub, as simple as that, and then it's responsibility of hub to distribute your execution flow or your traffic. That's all in this session. Thank you so much for joining. See you in the next one.